guys, today on Watch with Poppy we're going to be talking about the latest episode of Once Upon a Time. And there was a lot going on in this episode, so let's kind of talk about it. So, of course we know that Emma and Mr. Gold and Henry are in New York because they're looking for Mr. Gold's son. Meanwhile, back in Storybrooke we get that Regina and Cora and Hook are all basically like scheming to try to bring down Mr. Gold. Like, they know that he's out of town, and so they decide that this is the perfect time for them to find some like knife that he has, because they feel like if they find the knife, they'll be able to use it on him when he comes back. So Regina goes to see Belle, who of course is still in the hospital and still has no memory of who she is or of anything. But Regina really feels like Mr. Gold would have left a clue with someone, and of course he would have left it with Belle because that's the person who he loves. So she goes through her stuff, right? And she doesn't do it in the like normal human way, like I'm gonna go through your purse type of thing. She does magic and makes all the stuff in her purse like float around the room until she finds this little piece of paper that looks like it has like a library code on it, you know, like the Dewey Decimal System. Now, of course, what we find out later is that the stranger, Greg, who of course is still in Storybrooke, he sees Regina do this. And not just that, he like takes video of her on his cell phone. And whoever he's talking to on the phone, he tells them like, look, I'm gonna stay. And that person is obviously like, what are you staying for? And then he's like, I'm staying for this. And then he sends them the video. So now it's just not about the fact that he knows, but now other people know and have seen proof of the fact that something strange is going on in this little town. So flash to the library where we've got Regina, Cora, and Hook looking for this clue. They find a map, and Hook is the one who tells them like, this looks like, you know, regular scribbles, but this is actually a map. But once he tells them like how to read the map, you know, they kind of leave him behind. And let's talk about Hook for a second, you guys, because he's still like obviously recovering from his injuries from the car accident, because he's still walking around like holding his ribs and looking like really like feeble. And I'm just gonna need him to man up, because I want Captain Hook to be like bad and tough and strong and kind of all that stuff, and I just feel like they have been weakening this poor man, you know, like ever since he got to Storybrooke. And I don't know if that's like all a part of their plan. Whatever it is, I'm ready for Captain Hook to kind of like heal and start kicking some butt. Now back in New York, Henry, Mr. Gold, and Emma get to the apartment building where Mr. Gold's son lives. And basically, at the moment that he realizes that they're there, he runs. And so Emma takes chase, and you know, there's a collision and they fall on the ground, and then his face is revealed, and we're all kind of not all that surprised when we realize that Mr. Gold's son is Neil. I think most of us kind of figured that that's who it was gonna be. But it was still, you know, like a big moment, and I think the fact that we now know for sure that Neil is Mr. Gold's son definitely gives us a different perspective on a lot of different things. So Emma, of course, is shocked because this is the man who broke her heart, the man who betrayed her, you know, she went to jail and all this stuff, and so they kind of have this big argument, and he's just like, I don't want to see my father. And she's really kind of pressing him like, did you know who I was when we met? And he swears that he didn't. But of course the coincidence seems way too much for her, and for me too. I'm with Emma on this one. I mean, I think it's way too much of a coincidence, you know, that the two of them met in this huge old world, and the two of them are connected to Storybrooke. It makes me wonder if eventually we're going to find out that somehow the two of them are connected in other ways, like in the Enchanted Forest. And I'm not sure how or why, but it just seems kind of, yeah, there's something going on there. Now, of course, the other big thing about Neil is that he's Henry's father, and Emma knows that Henry's with her, and she doesn't really want to tell Henry the truth, because all this time she's been telling Henry that her father was a firefighter and that he's dead. So what she does is she goes back to the apartment and she lies, and she tells Mr. Gold, like, I lost him, and I don't know why she thinks he's just going to give up. She thinks that's going to be it and they're going to go home, but Mr. Gold is determined, and he breaks into the apartment. And as they're looking around, he starts to get this vibe from Emma that she's not, like, telling him everything. So they kind of get to this point where he's just like, don't lie to me, like, nobody breaks deals with me. And then in comes Neil. He comes back to the apartment because he realizes that, you know, Emma's probably not gonna get out of that so easily. And he's the one who kind of steps in and says, look, I'm here. But then that's when everything kind of breaks loose, you know, because eventually Henry comes back in the room. And once Neil hears Henry call Emma mom, he just is like, how old are you? And when Henry says, I'm 11, I mean, he's just like, is he my son? And that's when it all kind of falls apart, really. I love the part, too. There was like this little bit where when Emma realized what was going on, realized how close, she had her son and his father, she calls her mom. So she calls Mary Margaret, and she's just basically like, I don't know what to do. And I love that they did that. It was like a cute little moment where it was like, a daughter calling her mother for advice. There was also this really kind of vibe between Mr. Gold and Henry early on in the episode, because obviously once we realize that Neil is Mr. Gold's son, that means Mr. Gold is Henry's grandfather. And the two of them were having these discussions, and it was very grandfatherly. I don't know, it was just kind of like, he told Henry, like, you're an extraordinary young man, and he's like giving him advice, but it was definitely, you got the kind of family feels from this episode. So Henry's, I think really hurt, but at the same time, I think he wants to meet his dad. And, Henry, kids are so, like, I don't know, forgiving, like, he really is very forgiving with his dad. Like, there's the scene between the two of them, like, out on the fire escape, where Neil comes out to meet Henry, and they start talking. And he says something to him like, I'm sorry, and Henry says, it's okay, because you didn't know. And, you just see how willing Henry is to kind of accept him and into his life, really. But on the other end, with Emma, she tries to kind of explain to him, like, look, I'm sorry, this really wasn't about you. It was about me, kind of hiding from the things I didn't want to see anymore. I didn't want to see him because he broke my heart. But Henry says something to her that was just so tough, and like tells her, like, I thought you were different, but you're just like her. You're just like Regina. Like, she used to lie to me all the time too. It was just so, like, you saw the like heartbreak on Emma's face when she heard that, because you get that she thought she was trying to protect Henry, but then she realized I was really just protecting myself, and then she realizes, I think, how much she hurt him by lying. So there's a lesson out there, people. If you're lying to your kids, you should tell them the truth. Now let's talk about the flashbacks for a minute. There were some scenes in the Enchanted Forest where we saw kind of the backstory of Rumplestiltskin and his family again, and the whole, like, him being branded a coward. This is before he became, the Dark One. So you see him really excited as he decides to go off to the front lines and join the war, because he's really trying to not be like his dad, who was a coward. And his wife is so proud of him. And when he's there, one day he's like charged with the task of like guarding this prisoner. And it turns out that it's a seer. And like she talks to him. Okay, let's talk about her, you guys, because she was like creepy weird, and she had like, her eyes were like sewn shut, or they were not there, and her eyes were on her hands. It was just spooky, weird. But she tells him his future and tells him, like, look, your wife's pregnant. You're going to have a son, but basically because of what's going to happen on the battlefield tomorrow, your son is going to grow up fatherless. So, Rumpelstiltskin automatically assumes that means I'm going to die tomorrow. I don't want to abandon my son like my father abandoned me. And so what he does is he injures himself. Like, he decides to break his leg so that he can get sent home and not go to battle and die. But in the end, what happens is, he's branded a coward. Everybody knows that he did it on purpose. But when Rumpelstiltskin goes home, like, as the story develops, you kind of realize that things are turning out exactly like the seer said they would. Like, he thought not going into battle was going to avoid that, but in reality it doesn't, and he still does lose his son, which we know. There's another scene as well between Rumpelstiltskin and the seer, and this happens years later, and now at this point he is the Dark One, and when they meet, he's just kind of like, a little upset, like, you could have given me some details the last time, and she tries to tell him it doesn't work like that. But kind of the big thing in this conversation the two of them have is that she gives him another prophecy. She tells him that he will find his son again eventually, but that it's going to take several years and it's going to be like a hard road. But then she starts to talk to him about a boy. This boy that he's going to meet, and this boy is going to be more than he seems, and that this boy will be his undoing. And you kind of start to get that she's talking about Henry. At least that was my assumption when I heard her say it. And you see Mr. Gold, like, in the present, as he's standing watching Henry and Neil kind of talk and get to know each other. You kind of get that he realizes that the boy from the seer's, prediction is Henry. And so it just makes you wonder what's going to happen there, because, obviously also now Henry is his grandson, and at the same time he's trying to get to know his son again, so you'd hope he wouldn't do anything evil, but you wouldn't put it past him. Okay, you guys, don't be mad at me. Please promise you won't be mad, but I don't know, Mr. Gold drove me insane in this episode, like, and he has been for the past couple of weeks, where I just, like, I don't know, his character's kind of getting on my nerves. I really enjoy him when he's, like, in the Enchanted Forest, and he's, like, the Rumplestiltskin and he's like got gold paint on his face and he's just bad. I really like him in that way, but like the whole Mr. Gold and Storybrooke, I just don't know what it is. I just don't connect with his character at all. So it's like I have no sympathy for him, and it's just, I don't know. I am not feeling it for some reason. Just like I don't get him and Belle, and I know there's lots of you guys out there who are in love with the whole like Rumplestiltskin pairing. I just don't get it. But please don't hate me. Don't hate me. The other bit in this episode as well is that, you know, eventually Mr. Gold does get to talk to his son, and he is trying to reconnect with him, but, you know, Bay is not having any of it. You know, Neil is just pretty much like, you had your chance to talk, I let you have it, we're done, that's it. But you get that it's not going to be done, because now that he knows he's Henry's dad, more than likely we are going to see him in Storybrooke, so there's a lot going on there. Okay, that's it for me today. Thanks so much for watching, you guys. Don't forget to comment, like, subscribe, and I will talk to you again soon. Bye.